students, how is your English? Did you get the chance to practice this week? Maybe you went to a restaurant and you spoke some English, or you were online shopping and you had to read something in English. I think that speaking English is going to be one of the best ways to really get it ingrained or built into your mind, don't you?
Absolutely. You have to use it. Sometimes people are afraid to do that, and they've been learning it for a while, but even if it's not perfect, that's okay. It's good to just practice, right?
And that's a good point. Don't worry about having to talk perfect English. Sometimes I think we're worried about people criticizing us. Maybe we're worried about being embarrassed if we don't speak perfectly, or someone will, I don't know, but criticism can actually really be a hard thing to deal with when you're learning something new, right?
Yeah, any kind of criticism can be difficult no matter the situation, right? And it's kind of what we're talking about today, right?
It is. Okay, I think criticism can be hard to take sometimes. It depends. But that's our question for you today. Why do you think criticism is so difficult? Why do you think it is hard to take? Think about that and answer in English if you can. So, first of all, do you remember a time in your life when you got criticism?
Oh yeah, that's pretty easy, right?
It's pretty easy, yeah.
lots of room for criticism, and it is difficult to take, right? Which means it's difficult to receive, you could say. Yeah. I think it's difficult to receive criticism because we don't, well, first of all, I don't like confrontation, right? I don't want someone coming to me saying, you did X, Y, Z wrong, right? That just doesn't feel good. But I think, John, what we need to realize is this is an opportunity for us to grow, and we can give criticism and receive criticism if we do it with love.
That's true. So love is really important. Actually caring for the people you give criticism or feedback to, caring about them, and caring about the people that are giving you feedback. Because criticism is kind of like redirecting your action. If you're walking this way and I just move you a little bit, it could be really annoying, right? Because you're trying to do something in a certain way. But it can also be really helpful. So love and actually criticizing out of a relationship is very important.
Right, and there are different kinds of criticism. Someone could just be criticizing you to be mean, and that's not a type of criticism that maybe you need to receive, depending on whether or not it's true. But there's constructive criticism or constructive feedback, especially maybe in a work situation. People may be giving you feedback that is helpful but difficult.
So are you open to criticism? That's a question we should ask ourselves. Let's talk first about that word criticism. To criticize or to be a critic are other words you can use. A film critic is someone that gives their opinion on a movie. Criticism is often a negative sounding word, and we use it negatively. You can say, oh, don't be so critical, but it can also be a positive word. You could say critical thinking is when you process things and you really weigh them. Is this right? Is this wrong? So it's not always bad.
Sure.
So what about constructive criticism? That's a good word, right?
Well, yeah, constructive. When you put that in front of criticism, it takes that negative sounding word criticism and turns it into something more positive. Right? We sometimes say constructive feedback or constructive criticism, meaning that we're giving you some things about yourself or your work that you need to work on. But we're not trying to make it personal, meaning we're not saying that you're a bad person. We're just trying to give you some tips for improvement.
Yeah, and one way you can give criticism is called the sandwich method.
I love this one.
First, before I tell you about the sandwich method, look at our poll really quickly. So when criticized, which of these feelings is the hardest to overcome? When you get hard criticism, what do you feel, and what is the thing you fight against the most? Is it shame, feeling embarrassed? Is it anger, feeling frustrated? Is it fear, feeling worried? Or is it discouragement, feeling like all the energy you've put in just goes away? So what do you feel the most? The sandwich method. I bet when I explain it, you've probably heard of it before.
Yes, our hamburger. We may call it that too.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
So what is the hamburger method?
All right, so let's go with sandwich or hamburger. You have the top piece of bread there, and then you have the contents in between, and then you have the bottom piece of bread. So when you're talking about giving criticism, the first layer was that piece of bread. You're going to say something kind, right?
Yes.
Something nice.
Say something positive.
And then you get to the meat or the contents there. You're really getting to what you want to say, which would be the criticism.
Yeah.
And then you end with something positive.
Yeah. So let's say Brandon comes over to my house and he does some painting for me.
Oh, wow.
He paints a wall. And
lots of criticism coming.
Lots of criticism coming. And he misses a spot, or there's a spot that doesn't look good. So I could either just say, hey, Brandon, that spot looks terrible. And he's going to have to fight a lot of emotions. Or I could give him the same criticism with the sandwich method. I could say, Brandon, it's amazing how much work you put in. I'm so grateful for what you've done. Can you fix this spot for me real quick? It's missing. But man, you've made my day so much easier. Thank you. And see how that feels so much better. I gave the same criticism, but I was kind at the beginning and the end. Now be honest. Don't lie to people, but be kind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a great method to use when you're giving criticism. Very simple. You don't have to be formulaic or robotic in how you do that, but just how John said it in a very natural way.
Yeah. Formulaic. I really like that word. You can probably guess what it means. Formulaic means you just do something in a formula or just a pattern. Kind
of like a robot, just going step by step, right?
Yeah. It looks like discouragement is the winner so far for our poll. If you're just logging in, check out our poll. When you get criticized, what emotion is the hardest thing to deal with? Is it fear, anger, shame, or discouragement? Discouragement is a big thing. There's a method that I learned for creative thinking that my wife and I use at our house. We call it the red hat, blue hat method. Oh, and when you're
creative.
Yeah, very creative. So it wasn't our idea, but when you're developing a new idea, when you're building something, you can, and you share it with somebody. It's really important to have a positive stage where you can build on this idea without criticizing it too early. So we say, when we talk to each other about new ideas, we often say, okay, I'm going to put my blue hat on, which means I'm just going to be looking at this in positive ways for now. We're not going to worry about criticizing it, tearing it down. But then when it's time for criticism, we say, okay, I'm just going to be wearing my red hat for a little bit. This is going to be some destructive feedback. We're going to tear down this idea for a little bit. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that we hate it. We're just going to put on our red hats. And it helps people think about, the time for criticism when they're working together on an idea.
So what's the overall benefit of doing it that way versus another way?
Well, one thing that helps is communication. Let's say I'm really excited about a vacation idea, and she thinks, okay, hang on. The first thing that comes to my mind is it's too busy. This is going to be hard for the kids. So instead of just jumping in with criticism, she explains, look, can I just wear a red hat for a second? And it helps me remember, oh, she might like certain things, but she's going to share part of her thinking. And it just helps us kind of break down communication. So take it or leave it. I find it's helpful in big groups too.
That's amazing. I love that idea, and it's very simple. And you planned ahead of time, so you know what to expect. Expectations are always huge, right? Having proper expectations is important.
Yeah. Do you and your wife have any strategies for constructive criticism in your marriage?
We don't have any hats.
No hats. Yeah, these aren't literal hats.
I think we don't have any proper structure that we follow. I think we just kind of speak what's on our mind. But I like having this sort of structure in place that it prepares you for what's to come.
Yeah, and we don't use it all the time, but I think you already said the most important thing, which is out of love. When your motive for giving and receiving criticism is love, that's super helpful.
Absolutely. We need to speak the truth, but do it in a loving manner. Sometimes we just want to speak the truth, but as hurtful, and people don't want to receive that. So that's not a really good way to do it. And then sometimes we want to be loving and just not and exclude the truth, like just maybe basically being dishonest or lying to people, and that's not helpful either.
That's super good advice. It reminds me of this proverb from the Bible that says, if you see somebody and they're on the road to getting hurt and you don't say anything, then God knows that, you know. So don't hurt your conscience or your morals by seeing somebody that needs a little bit of criticism and not saying anything. That actually will hurt you internally because you won't be in the truth anymore. It's a big idea, but in your friendships, honesty is really important. We all know that friends that can tell us the truth in love are really valuable. So think about that for this week. We have a vacation here in Taiwan next week, right?
That's right. Next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is a vacation, a very long weekend. So we will not be here next Monday, but we will be back the following Monday.
That's right. Luna, thanks for commenting on the sandwich. You say it's more difficult, you think, to criticize another person appropriately. Yeah, it's hard to find that balance. The sandwich might be a useful way, but I still care for others' feelings when hearing the criticism. Yeah, just make sure that the bread on your sandwich is really thick. You know, you don't have to. So just make sure that bread is really thick. Really build them up. You can use the 10-to-1 rule. Say 10 positive things for every one criticism. That can be helpful and a good way to get creative about complimenting people in truth. But we pray for you. Yeah, it's hard to give criticism.
And Luna, I agree with you. I think it's hard to give criticism, but I think we have to practice at it. And I don't mean like you're just looking for things, looking for flaws in people, but when it's necessary to do so, we take steps to do that. And then I think it becomes a little easier over time.
Yeah. All right, friends. Well, that's all for today. We hope you'll join us next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not already.
And become a member, right? If you haven't joined, it's $199 NT per month, and you get extra content. So be sure to do that.
Yeah, all the good stuff from the Advanced magazine. It'll help you practice and give you access to new tools that help you in your English learning journey and a little bit more structure as you learn. Sometimes it's nice to be a little bit more structured, to be motivated, because we all know it's hard to be motivated to do anything these days. We've got a lot of distractions, but English is important, and the more you push early on, the more you will thank yourself in a couple of years. All right, friends, well, safe week, safe vacationing if you're going somewhere this holiday, and we will see you.
See you next time.
I don't have any constructive criticism right now, but thank you for watching.
It's a nice shirt. That's not, you might have criticized it.
Is that the bread part?